If you guys want to say hi to YouTube, feel free to say hi to YouTube. This one's a major deal. All the free-to-play guys are going to be happy, and all the OGs are going to be pissed. But we'll go over it. Took servers down for a hotfix starting at 11:30. Servers returned 2 hours afterwards, so we should see something around 1:30 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's going to be like an hour and 40, maybe 45 minutes from now, somewhere around there. Fixed an issue with server crashes. Ignite wasn't applied properly to weapons. Sound that occurred hitting the thorn barrier where the weapon was set incorrectly. It didn't actually make one, so now we should have a sound where it hits thorn barrier, so that's cool. Frost Wyvern could sometimes take damage without waking up. Fix an issue where the rope escape wouldn't work properly because the rope was kicking everybody off. If you tried to use a rope, you couldn't use a rope. Now you can use a rope, so that's awesome. To allow all players to experience full loot extraction experience, we'll begin testing an updated normal mode. This is where everybody's pissed. The gear cap for normal mode dungeons has been increased from common to legendary grade, which means you can take in everything other than like uniques like Viola and Fulgor and Aegis. Okay, so that's first, before everybody starts losing their mind. Gear score matchmaking is enabled for normal mode dungeons. So now we have GBMM in normal mode. So there's going to be Pormals for people that don't have shit on, and then there's going to be everybody else. Normal mode dungeons are now split into 2 matching pools. The default matching pool is set at a maximum gear score of 25 to most closely match the previous normal game experience where players were restricted to common gear. Players or teams with anyone having a gear score above 25 are placed in a more difficult normal matchmaking pool. Then they say they updated the gear score for poor and common items to have a lower gear score, updated the gear score for utility items to no longer provide any gear score, so that is unlimited potions, and it also means utility items are also instruments. So that means that, in like campfires and stuff, so that means that a bard, or really anyone else, or like mining picks, instruments, anything like that is considered a utility item. So anything of the utility category is no longer considered having a gear score associated with it. That kind of shifts things a little bit, but shouldn't be like crazy overpowered. I think they're going to have to make a separate category for like instruments and like hunter traps, because those are considered utility too, but you know, growing pains. Healing potions and bandages provided by the squire now have a quantity of 2. So bandies and healing pots for free, you now get a 2-stack instead of just singles. High Roller Dungeon is available as soon as you reach legendary status, which means they removed the 72-hour like cooldown. So it used to be when you got a new account, you had to wait 72 hours before you could use High Roller or use the market. The reason for that was because of trying to combat curb against like guys that are going to cheat and RMTers, because cheaters would get caught, they'd rebuy a new account, and they go right back into HR again. So this would curb that. But because of people like upgrading from their free-to-play version and wanting access to game content, they're still going to do that. Trade must be available 72 hours after legendary status is activated. Okay, so they're still making people wait 3 days before they can use trade. Again, it's a combat RMT feature, so that way you don't have people cheating their balls off and taking everybody's good stuff and just selling it on the market or trying to sell it for like real money. We've been thinking deeply about blah, blah, blah. After careful consideration, we've decided to test the removal of item restrictions, allowing people to bring stuff up to legendary grade. You can only run normals. We'll be utilizing a gear-based matchmaking system, restricting players to mostly common grade gear. Players with higher gear will be matched into a separate matchmaking pool where almost everything goes. We expect that this addition to the matchmaking pool will help the normal matches feel similar to the previous playtest from times yonder, with much chaos and destruction. We are excited to see how the community accepts the new normal mode, and then of course, like, the general chat's losing its fucking mind. Like, everybody's scrolling, right? Balls, right? So that's where we're at. Everybody's mad, basically. Here's the problem, right? All the OGs are now going, well, what did we buy? That's the issue. The guys that came in and spent $35 on the video game, $35 to $50, depending on who they are. Their problem is that they think that they somehow didn't like get what they paid for, or like the people that went free to play are getting more than what they should, or the guys that bought the game don't have anything to show for it. Like, what did I buy then? Right? Like, High Roller isn't enough of a carrot for their $35 purchase, or the shared stash tab, or like an unlimited number or 9 character slots, and like none of that stuff matters, right? And then the $50 like hold the line guys, they got the extra, they got the Skelly skin, and they got the hold the line emote, and you know, none of that counts, I guess. So for me, the way that I look at it is, as long as the gear-based matchmaking system works, because that's really what it comes down to, is whether or not the GBMM thing that they're setting up actually functions. If it functions, it's not a problem. It becomes a non-issue, because a 25 gear score is basically nothing. It's basically no gear, right? like you're talking everybody wearing white quality stuff. That automatically puts everybody in like the no gear Timmy lobby, right? And then if you're talking about unlimited gear quality, as soon as you start putting on full greens, you're going to be above that threshold. There's no question, right? So you go above that threshold, and people that don't play this game or haven't played this game historically don't understand that there is a chasm of difference. It is a massive leap, massive spike in power between somebody wearing greens and somebody wearing white gear. The difference between a warlock wearing white quality gear is 4 plus healing versus 15 plus healing, right? Because you can get plus heal on your book, on your neck, on your chest, on the gloves, right? And then you got plus 3 on the headpiece. You got shit tons of plus heal. Maybe not 15, but 12, whatever it is. You have a shit ton of plus healing. All of a sudden, that like exponentially increases the survivability of a warlock. So now they are even more effective at kiting people than what they would have been if they were just in white gear. So it vastly modifies the game, all of the plus true damage stuff that is capable of rolling on gear now, which means that people like me, people like Jay, people like Repose would understand how to min-max the hell out of a character so that even if it was just greens, going in versus guys and wearing white gear, they would get absolutely steamrolled because the guys that typically run white gear, if they're learning the game, don't understand itemization. Not yet. So you have guys that know what they're doing that are going to min-max the fuck out of a GBMM system unless it's restricted to whites, and then above that, if it's not restricted to those two things, it becomes a problem. And then people argue, well, break it up into multiple brackets. Every time that you do that, you add another queue. And even with a player concurrent count of 40 to 50,000, like what it is right now, that's not enough people to keep lobbies filled when you start breaking everybody up into like these different gear-based matchmaking queues. There just won't be enough people to go around. So you can do that, but then you're going to end up complaining that you don't have anybody to play against. Essentially, what they've done is they made it so that normals have the people that are newer or want to play like a lesser geared starting experience. They can do that if they want to. And then everybody else that's got gear goes into the big pool to swim with the big boys, just like how it works in High Roller. That's it. So they're going to get the equivalent High Roller, everybody's got gear experience, and they're all going to get steamrolled because they don't know what they're doing and they think that the gear is going to matter, and it doesn't. And they're going to get their ass kicked by people that have been playing for 1,000 or 1,500 hours that are going to thank them for the gear donation. And then those dudes are going to go back to playing normal mode because they realize that they're not ready. Or they're going to go to Reddit and they're going to complain about how these guys with crazy gear are they're just getting their face kicked in, right? So what I will say to this is they don't know what they asked for. And they're going to get shown what they asked for, and they're not going to like it, is basically what's going to happen. Because all these guys that got 1,500 hours are going to start rolling in the geared lobbies, and these dudes are going to get walked all over. But they're going to have the ability to play. Greens and blues with my free-to-play friends, because otherwise equip everything every match because they can't do HR. Yo, that's fair. That's fair, Cap. That's absolutely fair. And I see the logic in it. It's just that now you're going to end up in that big pond, right? Instead of being the big fish in the little pond, you're going to be a normal sized fish in a really big pond. And there's going to be guys that will live in the market and pull the best possible stat allocations that they can, or run like crazy good gear and go after people. That's what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, there's no getting around it. I don't like it. And all of that being said, I don't have a problem with what they've done as long as the gear-based matchmaking thing works. If it works, then we're fine, right? Because the guys that want to play normals and want the purity of normals and running pormal lobbies, like we used to call them back in the day, right? Guys that want to run those, they'll be able to run them, and they're going to end up match made with other guys that have the same like mode, right? And it'll be fine. Everybody else, it's like, I want to run my gear. All right, good. I'm like, go run it, and you will have the high roller experience with just like lesser grade like difficulty mobs. That's it. You get to run against all the big boys with their big boy kits on. You just don't end up having like the hardcore PvE experience. That's all. It'll make it a lot easier to kill like normal mode bosses when you run geared like that. If you can survive, you know, the guys that will know exactly where you're spawning and are going to bum rush all of them and clear the lobby out in the first 5 minutes. If you can survive that, then yeah, you're going to have an easier time bossing. Do you not feel disrespected? We bought this game to support Iron Mace and keep the doors open. Now they act like we don't exist. Well, I'm sorry. Has Iron Mace closed? Is the game worse? Have they taken the game away from you? Like, the studio's still open. You're still playing the game the way that you've been playing it all along. I don't see how... Like, if you bought it to support them and you truly bought it with the intention of supporting them, then you should say, oh, like, they're still making a quality product. It's the studio's still open. They've been supported. W, right? You know what I mean? Like, and hopefully that's... I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to sound sarcastic or, like, condescending. I mean that. Like, the studio's still open. They're still making a quality product. It actually doesn't degrade your ability to play the game the way that you want to play it at all. You know what I mean? And not for nothing, but the 30, 35 bucks or whatever that you spent, granted, there is less of a benefit like versus what you have versus what the free-to-play guys have, but they also gave an added benefit that we didn't used to possess in having a shared stash, right? So like the free-to-play guys still only have one character slot, and they still don't have like shared stash. They still don't get access to trade. You know, like there's an awful lot of a benefit to paying the 30 or 35 bucks or whatever, right? So I don't see how like it's a disrespectful move. That's all. In the way that they ended up structuring this, like they did a blog post yesterday. The reason why it's structured the way it is and like they don't have a price tag on Steam is because guys that bought it already on Blacksmith would have bought it like for bucks or whatever, likely on Steam, and there would have been overlap. And when people wanted to do the account linking, it wouldn't have worked because you would have had to pick like which one are you going to overwrite it with. They wouldn't have been able to just merge the two, right? Which is why they have like the free-to-play version and you have to like repurchase it in game or using redstones or however they ended up doing it. This way, through that like free-to-play model, anybody that had the other account will just have their account migrated over to like Steam's side, and it'll essentially be like a clean slate. And so that way, if the normal game mode that people, like let's say for whatever reason, somebody decided they were going to play on the Steam's free-to-play, whatever, just to experience it, if it got overwrote, you're not really losing anything, you know? In short, we now have 3 lobbies. Yeah, because I don't know if there's any GBMM anymore on the High Roller side, because we don't really know. They never said one way or another if there was GBMM. It just looks like there's not, because like there's guys with tons of gear that are playing with dudes that are like $2.99 and under or whatever. But that happened during the season 2, so I don't really know. I guess I can write him a DM and ask if gear-based is still on an HR or not. Does this change kill High Roller? No, because like you have to remember too, the carrot for High Roller is you have the extra difficulty, but then you also have the extra reward potential, right? I guess the best way that I can put this is like I welcome the Timmies wanting to run gear in normal mode, because when they end up running Rich Roller, Rich Normals, I will look forward to their gear donation services. I can always use more gear, right? I do think from a perception point of view on the outside, it will help people's perception of the game so that more people want to play it. I do. I think it'll help perception. Are they boosting the loot and the geared normals? No. If they boosted loot and geared normals, I'd be pissed. Then I would think it was fucked. They shouldn't do that. Time to min-max 25 GS. Yeah, so they said that they modified the gear score of white quality items in the patch notes, so it's going to depend on like what it was modified to. It could be if you have full white gear on, right, that's it. Or like you're going to mix and match, right? Because I don't know, like maybe a ring is 15 or something. Like a green ring is 15. So you can have like one green ring and like a couple of pieces, and then after that, like that's all you get, you know? It's going to depend. SDF's typing. Patch is expected to take another hour, and there was incorrect information. We're correcting it. For utility items, only poor and common rarities will have their equipment score changed to 0. Okay. So that's better, because that means that people can't stack up like tons of blue potions or guys going in with like blue pickaxes or like blue bard weapons or blue bard instruments. Because you have a bard that's like, yeah, I'm in full grays, really, I swear. And then they've got like a purple drum, you know, Troll's blood pots. Yeah. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this. Like at its core, I'm okay with it. I think it's fine as long as it works. And there aren't, like, there's going to be people that will try to min-max it. It will be a question of whether or not it can be abused, and if it can, how severely. Because we don't know what the gear score is, like, going to be, right? Because they modified the gear score for poor and common items to have a lower one, which gives a little bit more room. So you have to wonder, is, like, when they modified this, does that mean that it, like, allows people, like, a little bit of leeway and they can start bringing in, like, green necklaces and rings and stuff? Or is it, like, you're just at the threshold if you have like full white stuff on? Like we don't know, so we'll find out, I guess. Yeah, I can send him a message and ask if GBMM is still in High Roller. He said no. High Roller had GBMM removed. We don't like GBMM. He was listening already. He heard me say it. He's lurking. He's lurking. We want to remove GBMM ultimately, he said. Norm should be capped at blues. Tell that to the free-to-play guys that want to be able to run whatever they loot. You got to remember that the reason why this exists is because an awful lot of vocal people started bitching and like negatively reviewing the game on Steam without understanding or context. So I would argue, for those of you that think that this is silly, maybe provide that context. Because once it's open,